Hi, I'm Kimberlyn. When you find yourself in need of inspiration or guided introspection, that's what I do. That's why I'm here. And whether it's related to your practice on the mat or out in the world, to me, it's all yoga. And by that I mean it's all part of living and learning. In other words, we're not here to be perfect or perform, but rather to practice. So let me be clear. I'm not here because I have it all figured out. On the contrary, I'm here because I believe that no matter what we've accomplished, what we've endured, life is better when we come together authentically and compassionately to share our stories. Storytime is a virtual meeting space where we gather to connect. This journey of life is truly all about connection. And yoga is the practice of building and nurturing authentic connections within and in community. By sharing our stories, we share our hearts. We connect more deeply, more intimately with ourselves and each other. So whether it's live and in real time or anytime on your time, we're here to be together. Welcome to Storytime. I'm so glad that you are here. We pick up our story from where we left off. Ganga has been called to earth after decades of prayerful petitioning from King Bhagirath, having gained the blessing of both Brahma and Shiva. So the story continues. Ganga becomes a river on earth. Ganga, taking the form of a river, cascaded down from the heavens in a wild torrent, a swirling stream of shining water, connected heaven to earth, but for only an instant. Then Ganga fell into the net of hair that Lord Shiva had cast for her. With one fluid motion, Shiva gathered his hair into a giant knob on the top of his head, trapping the river Ganga within. Then Shiva sat down right where he was and resumed his meditation that had been interrupted in order to answer Bhagirath's prayer. He stared straight ahead and didn't pay attention to Ganga, who was waving her arms and screaming, "Set me free! Set me free!" Shiva didn't pay any more attention to Bhagirath either. Slid right back into his meditation. Bhagirath was confused and upset, feeling slighted. He knew that it would be impolite to bother Lord Shiva when he was meditating, but when was he not meditating? How could Ganga help Bhagirath's ancestors when she was trapped in Shiva's hair? Finally, in desperation, he blurted, "Lord Shiva, we need Ganga on earth. Please have mercy on my poor ancestors. Please, Lord Shiva, let her loose." Once more, Lord Shiva heard him. He squeezed one of his locks, and Ganga came rushing out again, but not as wildly, not as unruly. "Follow the prince," Shiva said, and he vanished into thin air. Bhagirath was elated, and Ganga bubbled with pleasure to be free as she dropped from the icy peaks and valleys of the Himalayas. Down and down she flowed, following Bhagirath, who walked ahead, blowing a conch shell. As the melting snows from the mountains joined her, Ganga grew even deeper and wider. By the time they reached the plains of northern India, Ganga was a huge river, though she herself did not yet recognize how great she had become. One day, as she followed Bhagirath past a holy hermitage, she heard the chants of sage Janu and his students. She stopped briefly to listen to the lovely singing and did not notice that her banks overflowed as if stopped by a dam. She did not realize what havoc she was creating. She was just enjoying the chanting. Monks and students fled the rapidly rising water, and the sacred pots used in worship floated away. The river continued to rise, flooding temples and houses. Sage Janu, a wise man, understood just what was happening. Ganga has come from earth, has come from heaven, and she doesn't know her own powers. There's only one thing to do. He quickly chanted a mantra and then took a long sip of the raging waters. The flood subsided. The river vanished. All that remained were the drenched students, the sacred pots scattered about, and a dry riverbed. Bhagirath, walking ahead, turned his head at the sudden silence. Where was Ganga? Where was the mighty river? He ran back to the hermitage. Ganga, Ganga, where are you? He called frantically. Sage Janu was sitting peacefully under a tree. Here she is, he said, rubbing his enormous belly. She has no self-control, he said with a satisfied burp. She needed to learn some respect. Bhagirath flung himself on the ground. Please release her. I have struggled so hard to bring her to earth. In desperation, he narrated the long, sad story of his 60,000 ancestors, how they died and how they were cursed, their spirits trapped in their own ashes. He told the sage of his years of solitary prayer and penance, of his meetings with Brahma and Shiva. Please, let her go. Earth needs her now. The sage was moved by the tale and by Bhagirath's deep sincerity. I will help you, of course, he said. Here she is. And right away he gouged a deep cut in his thigh. Bhagirath stared in wonder. Instead of blood, Ganga poured from the wound, clear and pure. She had calmed her exuberance and was wiser from the experience of being swallowed up and contained and held by the wise sage. Happily, the two thanked the sage, who blessed them as they set off once again on their journey. Everywhere they went, the earth responded with new life. Everything Ganga touched was renewed by her goodness. Flowers opened in a rainbow of blossoms. Crops grew lush and green. And throngs of people came to bathe, chanting praises, offering prayers for their ancestors, their spirits renewed and purified by her pure waters. Ganga and Bhagirath traveled all the way across India and reached the desolate marshlands at the far eastern shores of India, where they found sage Kapil. The old man was delighted to see them. I have waited many, many years for this day, he said. He led Ganga to the heap of ashes, all that remained of the army that he had singed with his own eyes. As Ganga poured her waters through the ashes, the spirits of the 60,000 brothers emerged, lit up with divine light. Bhagirath was filled to the brim with joy. At last, the souls of his ancestors were free. The spirit beings rose like a luminous cloud, offering prayers to Ganga and showering Bhagirath with flowers as they ascended to the heavens above. Ganga, too, was filled with joy. She had found her purpose on earth. She was truly needed. So I have 3 takeaways from today's story. First, Ganga is believed to contain the energy of Lord Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and to have the power to release the human spirit from pain and despair. From that day, humans have continued to come to Ganga for help. Her sacred waters, born from the touch of Vishnu's big toe, nurtured by Lord Brahma, and then contained by Lord Shiva. Ganga, the river goddess who made the long journey from heaven to earth, is still a wondrous and mighty river flowing from the highest peaks of the Himalayas down to the Bay of Bengal. Thousands of hermitage temples, shrines, and sacred sites have sprung up along her banks over the many thousands of years since her journey first began. Millions of people worship her, traveling great distances to bathe in her water, bringing her their woes, seeking her comfort. She continues to make the long journey every day, and because she touches the lives of all who come to worship her, listening to their troubles, easing their pain, and washing away their sins, her journey is still filled with tales of sorrow and joy, hardship, and renewed hope. In our first chapter of the story, mockery cost little Ganga her joyful life in heaven. She earned the curse by mocking a river she earned the curse of becoming a river on earth by mocking sage Durvasa. Then in our second installment, we learn of sage Kapil's retribution, resulting in the death of King Sagar's 60,000 sons, turning them into a heap of ash for mocking his meditation and challenging his innocence. In contrast, King Bhagirath, same person, humility and determination help him succeed in his mission to bring Ganga out of heaven to release the souls of his ancestors. Bhagirath is remembered to this day as a humble man whose strength of character and perseverance earned a just reward. The myth of Ganga offers several profound lessons that resonate deeply with spiritual, moral, and ecological themes. First, the story of Ganga's descent from the heavens teaches the value of selfless service and sacrifice. According to the myth, Ganga agreed, or at least came to terms with, this punishment of descending to the earth to purify the ashes of the ancestors of King Bhagirath, who had performed severe penance to bring her down for this purpose. Ganga's willingness to take on this mission, despite knowing the potential destruction her powerful flow could cause, highlights the importance of compassion and transformative power of selflessness in alleviating the suffering of others. This narrative encourages us to consider the greater good and act with empathy and responsibility towards the needs of others. Second, the myth emphasizes the significance of respecting and protecting nature. Ganga, as a divine entity, represents the sacredness of natural resources, particularly water. The story underscores the idea that rivers and other natural elements are not merely physical entities to be exploited, but living beings deserving of reverence and care. This lesson is especially relevant in the modern context where environmental degradation and pollution threaten the health of rivers like the Ganga. The myth of Ganga reminds us of the interconnectedness between humans and nature and the need for sustainable practices that honor and preserve the natural world for future generations. And finally, at least for me, the most powerful lesson in this story is the identity development of Ganga herself. Born of privilege and comfort, she had to learn humility and self-control, resulting not only in the relocation of her home from heaven to earth, but also a change of her form from human to river. To become her true self, even having been born from water, Ganga had to experience life's trials and tribulations to discover her authenticity. Though not always comfortable, the lessons and obstacles along the way helped Ganga to discover her own power, her worth, and ultimately her dharma, her unique contribution to the world. I didn't start my journey in heaven, and yet maybe I did. Depending on your origin story for humanity and for life, but we all have to learn the humility, the path of finding our own way in the world, our dharma. I share these stories to expand our minds and our hearts, to grow in authentic alignment, and to help you and me move freely through the tasks of each and every day and the seasons of life. Every day is an invitation to begin again in greater intention and alignment. Connection is key to receiving and benefiting from that invitation. My invitation to you is just that. Let's connect. I would love to hear from you. How are you living your yoga? When I hear from you, I use your questions and examples to expand and personalize these messages so they support you in living well. So email me. Come on into the studio or join our app for tons of free content to support your yoga living. Whether you visit us in person or online, whether it's for a one-on-one or a group experience, we want to meet you in the practice. We want to support you in living your life's work, your dharma. So let us close with a blessing. May you breathe deeply and move freely. May you labor lovingly and live vibrantly. May you be well. Namaste. Take care of you and take care of each other. That's yoga living in its simplest form. Thanks for being here.